There is a cancer deep inside America that we have all avoided looking at, and it is called Muslim extremism. At Fox, I told you about a conference that was coming here in America. This is video from it. It happened this summer. It happened in Chicago. No one has spoken about it since we left. We did, and we're going to on Thursday. I want you to see and hear the words that are coming out of that conference. This is from the Hizb ut-Tahrir America Conference. It is an Islamic organization whose goal is that all Muslim nations combine to, surprise, surprise, form what is called a caliphate or khalifa.
It was a beautiful sight to see the protests spread with such speed. From Tunis to Egypt, and from Egypt to Yemen, and from Yemen to Libya and Syria, the Ummah stood up at once. The Ummah broke its shackles of fear and began to reclaim its authority. The CIA and other intelligence agencies were shocked and caught off guard. The enemies of Islam were neither prepared nor aware of the anger brewing deep within us.
It's pretty bad stuff. This is the same group that proclaims on its website, quote, "The world is now witnessing millions of Muslims rise up and stand against oppression in Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Yemen, and indeed across the Muslim world. The little spark from Tunisia has ignited an unprecedented fervor that quickly spread to all Muslim lands. This Muslim community is vibrant and alive. It is only the beginning of true change that is to come, while the world awaits and carefully watches." The little spark from Tunisia. It is exactly what I have been telling you about for months. I keep saying that we need to watch for an Archduke Ferdinand moment. A little spark from Tunisia, I said, was it. We'll get back to that spark here in a moment, but I can't believe I'm saying these words on national television, but how many people know about the Archduke Ferdinand and what that moment even refers to? Do they know what happened? Do they even know what that moment meant historically and how many millions died because of it? To avoid repeating the mistakes of the past, we have to know our history and what led to those mistakes, because it's here on our wall with all of these TVs from the 40s to today. History repeats itself. So you have to know history. So tonight, in what is obviously a gratuitous attempt at ratings gold, we're about to talk about the Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination and what it meant to the world and to Europe. More importantly, have we had such another moment happen recently, and most of the world doesn't even know it? The Muslim world does. As much as things change since 1914, much stays exactly the same. Europe in 1914, tinderbox, then as now. The Balkans were a powder keg, then as they are now. Here's a map of Europe in 1914. See that? You can see Austria and Hungary were combined into one nation, cleverly called Austria-Hungary. Love that. So, some of the names have changed, but the hatred that stoked the fires of World War I remains exactly the same. Now, who was the Archduke Ferdinand? Well, he was the heir apparent to the throne of Austria-Hungary, or Hungary. The deal was that Serbia didn't want to be a part of this. They didn't like the Austro-Hungarian Empire, or Hungarian Empire. They hated that whole thing. When Ferdinand and his wife Sophie went to Sarajevo, that's the capital of the Serbian province, they went to witness military maneuvers there, and a group of Bosnian Serbs plotted to assassinate him. The ultimate goal was to force this country to break off into, little parts, break its southern Slavic provinces into greater Yugoslavia. The aim was for the assassination to be the spark that ignited something big, sort of like the little spark from Tunisia. And it did. The handful of Serbian military-trained assassins waited at various spots along the route that Ferdinand and Sophie would travel through Sarajevo in an open vehicle. It was much like the Kennedy assassination, except in a car that was a little like... The plan was whoever had the best opportunity to shoot Well, this guy was shot at 3 times. The first 2 assassins allowed the car to pass without taking action. The third saw a chance. He stepped from the crowd and lobbed a grenade at the car. It actually bounced off that car, which the Archduke was traveling in, and exploded underneath the car behind it, disabling the car. The driver of the car, the Archduke, and his wife were riding. They were riding in safety, and they just sped away. And they went to an appointment at the town hall. After leaving the reception, the driver took the wrong turn onto a side street and was spotted by a 19-year-old assassin. The driver realized the mistake and accidentally stalled the car as he tried to back up. The assassin saw his chance, walked up to the car, fired 2 bullets, one hitting Ferdinand in the throat, the other hitting his wife, Sophie, in the abdomen. Both of them died on the way to the hospital. That assassination was the spark that ignited the flame of World War I and changed the world forever. Within a month, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Under the secret treaty of 1892, Russia and France were obliged to mobilize their armies if any of the Triple Alliance mobilized. Does that sound a little like what is happening with NATO in Libya? Russia's mobilization set off full Austro-Hungarian and German mobilizations, and soon all the great powers, except for Italy and Great Britain, had chosen sides and had gone to war. They would join in the fighting later, as would the United States. But it would take us until 1917 to do it. So it's no small thing when Hizbut Tahrir speaks of the little spark from Tunisia. The Ferdinand spark led to World War. Indirectly, it also led to World War II. It was also responsible for the pandemic of 1917 that killed millions of people. The spark in question from Tunisia was a street vendor. The street vendor set himself on fire because he was disgusted with the oppression of Tunisian officials. Apparently, street vending without a permit is illegal in Tunisia, and police had confiscated his cart. So he went to City Hall, poured paint thinner all over himself, and set himself on fire. This is the guy that the President of the United States spoke about in the what do you call that speech that he gives in January, the State of the Union. It was the spark that started the revolution in Tunisia, that spread to Egypt, Algeria, Bahrain, Yemen, Syria, throughout the Middle East, and now into Europe. Referring to this Tunisian vendor's story of self-determination, here is what the president said during the State of the Union.
Same kind of humiliation that takes place every day in many parts of the world. The relentless tyranny of governments that deny their citizens dignity. Only this time something different happened. After local officials refused to hear his complaints, this young man, who had never been particularly active in politics, went to the headquarters of the provincial government, doused himself in fuel, and lit himself on fire. There are times in the course of history when the actions of ordinary citizens spark movements for change because they speak to a longing for freedom that has been building up for years.
That's your president. It was evident then, as it is now, that Obama was encouraging, I mean, if not people setting themselves on fire, certainly he was encouraging that spark that ignited the revolution. Now, you might be saying, well, come on, Glenn. Tunisia was an oppressive government. We should encourage them to rise up. Really? Then where was Barack Obama during the Iranian uprising that was soundly and violently crushed by an oppressive regime? Where was he? As I warned at the time, we need to be very cautious about encouraging uprisings in an already unstable Middle East. The entire world is unstable. Sure, the Tunisian government was oppressive. Although if street vending was illegal and you're street vending anyway, I mean, what are the authorities supposed to do? But I digress. They were out of line on that one, were they? They were out of line on many, many issues. But shouldn't we be careful about backing revolutions in countries with significant radical elements within those countries? The president also encouraged the youth revolution in Egypt. Here's what he said.
There are very few moments in our lives where we have the privilege to witness history taking place. This is one of those moments. This is one of those times. The people of Egypt have spoken. Their voices have been heard, and Egypt will never be the same.
True dat, Mr. President. True dat. So what are we seeing today? Radical elements, including those we were told were anything but radical, the Muslim Brotherhood, now taking hold in Egypt, threatening peace with Israel and relations with the United States. The same people that you will see on Thursday on this broadcast that are holding up that Tunisian spark that ignited the flames of revolt in Libya. We went headlong into a conflict because, as we are well aware, Muammar Gaddafi was not a good guy. But now we are learning more and more about the terrorist ties of the rebel forces in Libya that we have helped bring to power. Is that going to be good or bad for America? Is that good or bad for the Western way of life? Is that good or bad for Europe? In 1914, the volatile conditions in the Balkan region, coupled with the tangled alliances between nations, were ignited into the bloodiest war the world had ever known to that point, with the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand. Nearly 100 years later, here we are, standing on the precipice, trying to avoid the same kind of wildfire after the little spark from Tunisia touched it off. An already very volatile situation in the Middle East. In order to avoid a repeat of history, our leaders will have to wake up and stop encouraging the spread of fire, and instead start pointing to fire extinguishers. Have you heard anyone talk about Tunisia and the Archduke Ferdinand? If the politician, no matter who you're going to vote for, doesn't understand this, they are the wrong person to lead your local pet shop, let alone be a leader in Congress or a leader in the White House. Back in a minute.
Khalifa Conference 2011.
The time has come for the return of Islam.
Revolution comes to the Muslim world.
Do we want this revolution to succeed?
Radical Islam returns to the United States.
The West was trembling with fear as it should be.
Not human rights and not women's rights. Islamic Sharia rights.
Glory is yours if you are willing to face death.
The Khalifa in America, this Thursday, only on GBTV.com.